Hello, friends, family, and keepers of the faith, to a new Del Boy blog. This is year 2, blog 6, or in legacy numbers, blog 58, and it's dated the 2nd of April 2023. Yes, we're moving that quickly. Now, I don't know whether anybody got caught up with April Fools this year. I can't remember the last time I got caught by one. I saw a couple on the internet yesterday, but I wasn't looking really too hard. But always funny, April Fools. And then there's all those rules. It's got to be before midday and all of that sort of stuff. But, you know, nice to have these little fun things. And first of all, I just need to make a little bit of an apology, actually, for last week, because not only did I have all these technical issues, which at the end of the day took up just over 5 hours of my time just in recording last week. And many of you might have noticed, but you didn't comment, and thank you very much for not doing so, that I seem to be acting a little bit more strangely towards the end. And I just want to explain that. I've been sort of like talking a lot of the time about when I've been going back to work that um, I suddenly start to get blurry vision, that things get a bit giddy. You know, the world spins. It's hard for me to actually concentrate. And I noticed that on the third take and around about 40 minutes in, I seem to be acting more um, irritable in the chair, rubbing my hands a lot, my eyes not becoming focused on the camera, hard for me to read, slurring voice, almost like being drunk. I looked at it every time I saw myself take a glass of orange, say, during that recording. I kept thinking, people are going to start thinking there's vodka or something in that orange juice. But it's what I've been trying to explain. I dare say, and I can't say this because I didn't do a blood pressure check at the end, that I was probably quite stressed, going through the same thing for about the third time. And what that tends to do to me will probably raise my blood pressure. And if my blood pressure raises, then of course things start to happen. My cheeks become red, and those blurry vision and giddiness type situations that I've been talking about for so many months now start to be seen. And even your language change. I've noticed that I'm using strange words for stuff, and almost like salad language. There was a show called Boston Legal where William Shatner and was in it. It was a law show, um, and basically his best friend had what they call salad language. What it was, all his words changed into salad and fruit words. Quite a funny thing. James Spader was the person that had the problem. And I keep thinking to myself, am I getting Alzheimer's? Am I starting to have difficulty now, now that my brain has relaxed for such a long period of time because of work, that I'm not going to be able to go back to work at full 100% strength? Am I going to have difficulty learning new things in training? All sorts of worries. So I've tried not to worry about it. This week I've took a step back. In fact, this blog might even be shorter, because I've needed to step back and relax a little while still doing what I intended to do, which is a blog every week. And the blog is for you guys, but it's also for me. And remember, I'm doing it for my family. I want them to remember me and hear my voice, what my thoughts were. And so these medical problems I talk about are to show them some of the struggles that I've had. So what can I say other than thank you very much for joining me here? And the weather today is dull, but not raining. We're still frustrated here in the Del Boy household in the fact that I haven't mowed the lawn. The birds and the squirrels like me at the moment. My God, yeah. Greedy little sods. That bird table and the camera and all the footage. My God, I've got quite a bit of it now. And I need to start putting something together for my mum, really, because that's what it was all for. But they're greedy little sods. The squirrels are the worst. That and the pigeons. I like the doves. I like the robins. I like the blue tits. And even the odd magpie comes in. But the squirrel, just honestly, it's got its own container of nuts and it still goes on that bird table and gets to the, oh, well, I don't have to do so much work to eat here, do I? And starts eating the rest of it. But, right, let's start the blog, shall we? And let's talk about the news. So, not much really. We start off with the war, as always. I've written some notes, so if you see me looking down at my pad. Russia. I'm going to read my writing as well, by the way. Yeah, Russia assumed charge of the UN Security Council on Saturday. This caused fury and outrage, with Ukrainian President Zelensky labelling the situation absurd and destructive. It's hard to imagine anything that proves more the total bankruptcy of such institutions. Yeah, I thought that was a bit of a weird word, bankruptcy. But that's what it is in the news article. Yes, there are obviously other institutions that Russia are part in. I mean, I've noticed this week that they've started talking about Wimbledon again this year and Olympic meets and so forth, where Russia need to understand that they're under a neutral flag. But when it comes to politics and so forth, Russia are ingrained in so many other institutions that they think it's like any other day. And it's not like any other day. You started a war. And as far as I'm concerned, therefore, yes, I agree with Zelensky on this one. So the other bit of news this week, Trump was in the news. On the 30th of March, lawsuits against Donald Trump escalated as a Manhattan grand jury voted to indict Trump on criminal charges over hush money payments to adult star Stormy Daniels. This is just one of a possible 30 counts against Trump at this time. So yeah, I was looking at this, and in the news it was saying that they're going to go to his home in Florida on Monday, fly him to New York, put him in, take him to a jail cell, be seen by a jury on Tuesday, and have these accusations and problems read to him. And from there on, I don't know quite how it works. I dare say he'll be able to go free. He'll then need to be able to bring up his defence, and I dare say there'll be a court day. Very, very odd situation. But if I remember rightly, all through the Trump presidency, I was in uproar for over half of the things that were going on under his watch. And then the last one is the sad news about Paul O'Grady. Yes, Paul O'Grady, quite well known in the UK for a number of things. There's one special character that he's well known for in the UK, which is Lily Savage, because he dressed up as a lady like many entertainers have done, like Danny LaRue over the years. But Lily Savage was sort of like the common lady or woman of the time, and he dressed up as a lady and played a character called Lily Savage, very common. But in later years, he did his own talk show, definitely has a passion with animals. Um, Always talking about the plight of Battersea Dogs Home and Cats Home. And I believe every time he was there, he wanted to take one home with him. You know, he was that sort of character. So he died this week on the 28th of March. It's stated as unexpected but peaceful, which I like to hear, the peaceful part. Although I don't really know how anybody can say whether it was or not. Tributes have come in all week. He received an MBE in 2008. I think that's Member of the British Empire. So, and I take it that would be for entertainment and charity duties. Yes, a sad day to hear him die. My mum's been talking about it all week, to be quite honest. Um, and deaths are always nasty to hear about, but you know, that one particularly is poignant for a number of people that are animal lovers, at least. And then we get to the shout outs. Yes, we all love the shout outs. I think we do. I like to read them out for all of the reasons I've said before, which is time is something that you can never pay back. It's gone as far as I'm concerned. As much as I'd love to be the Doctor in Doctor Who, time's gone. So people that have taken their time out to comment or ask me a question, or just to say hi, is very, very much appreciated. So this week we have got people that I'm shouting out to as David Retro Games Played Badly, Mainmeister, Milfy Swimbuckle, Proton Studio, and I'll talk about them later, Jambon, Denny, Steve's Gaming, Colin Jones, Lord Evil, Charlie Angel, Down the Rabbit Hole, Martroid, Stevie Paperboy, Magda K, yeah, I'm still just going to say K, I'm not going to try pronouncing that, and Zestful. All have looked at the stuff that I've done this week and left a comment, and thank you so much for doing that. It's really, really appreciated. And of course, it makes me smile. So we're going to move on now to the questions. Bit of product placement, as you know, orange juice. No vodka in it. Don't like vodka anyway. Anyway, so we'll start off with the ones that are listed no particular order. I think it possibly does it in latest order, the last person that did it. So the first one we've got is Denny. Hi Adele. Absolute nightmare finding out the audio didn't work and having the 5-hour session to do your blog. Thanks for the perseverance. Yes, a lot of you didn't state whether it was unenjoyable or a problem to you, but thank you for all your perseverance, because like I say, I feel a lot better taking a bit of a rest this week, not trying to worry about it, but I needed to address it at the beginning, and I hope you understand that. Nicola Sturgeon, let's be honest, she was done over by the gender bill that nobody wants. How can she not say what a woman is? Totally understand where that comes from. I have to say, I'm not big into politics. It's nice that everybody does listen to the news part of it. Remember, it is just a date stamp, but I have opinions, and to be quite honest, don't have any big ones about Scottish politics too much. But yeah, questions and shout outs. Thanks again for answering my question. First point I have, much more joy from my internet friends. Yeah. On the subject of Freds, the film you were on about was Children of Men. Yes, I got to remember that I was sort of like in a dizzy state when I was trying to remember things, and it was Clive Owen. Yeah. I'm glad that I didn't muck up the description of it so bad that people can't correct me. So for definite, yes, that was the film I was thinking about. Great you mentioned Soylent Green as well. A definite version of our future. if things keep going the way they are. Yeah, because we were talking about dystopian futures, and thank you so much, by the way, for sending me a copy of Threads. I'm looking forward to watching that today. After the Formula One. Yes, the Formula One was at 6 a.m. this morning. I really didn't think about waking up at 5 this morning and watching it. So immediately this stops, this recording, and I go to getting my mother's papers. I'll be watching the Formula One first and then Threads. So he's answered a lot of people's questions, which we'll probably don't really have an awful lot of time for at the moment, but we'll get to the end. Question: are there any games that come to mind that play and look better on the VIC-20 compared to the Commodore 64? Wow! Yes. Now, obviously, at the time, I would have moved from the VIC-20 to the Commodore 64. And I would be noticing, wow, doesn't everything look better on the Commodore 64? And to be quite honest, that would be true. But if you look at it with more scrutiny, and you look at it with more refreshed eyes and a different perspective, a bit more of a aged approach to it, there are a number of games that I think suited the VIC-20 compared to the Commodore 64, if not necessarily always to do with the visuals. Sometimes it can be the sound. Now, I might be wrong here, but I always considered Jeff Minter as being a much more enjoyable game creator on the VIC-20 than he was on the Commodore 64, and that's a hard thing to say sometimes, because if you think about all those titles, Ancipital, Iridius Alpha, Sheep in Space, they just wouldn't work on the VIC-20. But I came from that first colour computer to me, which was the VIC-20, and I grew up with those Jeff Minter games, and those were things like Grid Runner, Matrix, Laser Zone, and I would say that the VIC-20 versions probably surpassed the Commodore 64, and that might be just because of the crampness of the screen. You haven't got such a high resolution. One for definite, which I will rarely play the Commodore 64 version, will be Metagalactic Llama's Battle at the Edge of Time, because I played that on an unexpanded VIC-20 pretty much the year that it came out, and when I saw the Commodore 64 version, all you had was a greater expanse of blankness of screen, and that meant that the angles were better. You had much more chance of surviving the less cramped the screen is, but it was that crampedness that accelerated my need to get the angle quickly. So that's definitely one. And then one of the very early games that I got on the VIC-20 was Omega Race, which, I later found out about a year or so later was an arcade game. And I had that on cartridge on the VIC-20 and thought, wow, this looks good. Obviously with young eyes. It's not that. If you look at it now, it's very sparse and next to nothing to it. And when you look at the Commodore 64 version, they're identical. There's absolutely no difference. It's almost like they just took the code across. So I will again say that I think that the VIC-20 holds up better than the Commodore 64 version, because, to be quite honest, you just wouldn't have expected the VIC-20 one to excel like it did. So those are the ones that stick out, and I'm sure there are others. I gave my friend Steve a game to play called Grid Trap, which was done by a company called Livewire, and it came out on the VIC-20 and the Commodore 64. But it's hard push to say that the VIC-20 version looks better than the Commodore 64. The reason I gave Steve the VIC-20 version was not to torment him. It was because I was blown away that the VIC-20 could do it. That you could get the same type of enjoyment out of a much lower spec'd machine than the Commodore 64 version. And this was based around an arcade game as well, called Checkmate. So look those up. Those are great games, and you'll see what I mean. But that's my answer to you, Denny. I hope that's great for you. And so we then come to Steve's Gaming. Yeah, we get to, I ought to have a jingle for Steve's Gaming, but at the moment I just go salute, salute, salute to Steve because he's one of my mates, and I just like to do that. Don't know why, it just gets my aggression out. Hi Del, great blog again. Thanks for answering my question. Yeah, thanks. That's brilliant. And yes, he was agreeing about the little debate about shows that got progressively worse. I think it was, or there was something that disappointed us about the show, and he happened to mention Blake 7, where he didn't like the replacement ship, the replacement computer. And it wasn't a matter of he didn't like it. It was just that I think the best way to word it is that the things that they changed were so iconic, it was upsetting to see them go. And that's something that I think that we can all appreciate a little bit is letting things go, things that we love, and embracing something new. Because from Denny's perspective, and Denny was very verbal about the choices that Steve and I came out with. It's not that we don't like what happened, and we're not turning around and saying that there wasn't a need for it to happen either. It's just that some things are so iconic, some things then suddenly that are not even living become our friends. It's like, it's like blowing up the Enterprise. You feel something when it's gone, and the reason you feel it is because it was almost like your friend. So something that like that happened in Blake 7 obviously has an effect on a younger mind. And my mention of Space 1999 I think was appreciated. I wasn't saying that it was a bad show, and I didn't say that the second season was bad, and I didn't mention the good part, which was there was an introduction of a new character called Maya, who's a metamorphosis person who could turn into animals and creatures. No, it was to do with the visual element to me. That they'd changed the command center, that they'd changed the music, that they were wearing different jackets. To me, it was jarring for no reason whatsoever. And I noticed that there was a different feel to the second season, which was intentional. They didn't renew the show, so unfortunately we'll never know what a season 3 would be like. So thanks very much, Steve. And then we get to Colin. We love Colin. Colin's got his own channel. Always watches stuff. Talk about that a little bit later on. He says, kudos to you for the stamina you showed here and the time taken to get this ready for publishing. Yes, that was last week's blog, which I've already mentioned about. Not only stamina, but I think I've learned that I'm still not quite at that stage where I can probably do 8 hours in a stressful situation. 5 hours was pushing it last week for me, and all I can do really is build on top of that. Look, take the positives away from it. That's what I'm going to try and do. Star Trek, the slow motion picture. Yes, all right. I don't care what the review said. I still enjoyed it. Have read the books. Yeah, I got the novel of the actual film, and I've read a number of Star Trek novels as well, and one's written by William Shatner. And I get great enjoyment by reading stories outside of the TV series and the films, what was going on. There was also comics. That was my introduction to something outside of Star Trek, was when DC and Marvel both did a series of the original Star Trek. And then we get to my question for the next blog. What are your views on clicky baity posts? E.g., find the different letter, which is the odd one out. Posts asking stupid questions with thousands of comments on them, deliberately ambiguous math questions. Yeah. Mostly, 99.9% hate them. They come up and they go, the odd one out, and it's obvious there. And the stupid people underneath that will put different answers and all of that sort of stuff. When they are clickbait, they are there to tell your account is live to the world and then exploit it. It's the same with spam email. You know, where somebody sends you something and it says at the end, please pass this on to all your... It's there to bring servers to their knees with traffic. That's the whole point of them there. And I appreciated Colin giving me an example in Facebook this week. And it was a perfect example. Oh, they do drive you nuts. There are ones that I get enjoyment out of, but it's just... I get enjoyment because I work it out and then I realise, I understand before even doing it that it's just clickbait. It's just, oh, for God's sake, if anybody can't see the answer to this, it's that they must be on another planet or just never went to school or something or can't read. But yes, it annoys me. But you got to understand, I also come from an IT administration background, so all the time I've seen viruses spread by an attachment in an email or clickbait or all of that stuff that causes network traffic. It's caused me distress at work because I've then got to fix that problem to get the network back to full speed again. And we're talking about banking servers and government servers. So, yes, one of the banes of my life. Thank you very much, Colin. But I think that's a good one for me to read out as well, to pre-warn people. Please think about this before. You don't want to look clever by giving the right answer. The right answer sometimes is do nothing. Yeah, for definite. Mainmeister put a comment. He put, Scotland remain part of England. Oof, I'll let that one go with a sort of a, I don't know if it's a smiley face or some face with a piece of sweat coming from it. But because my mate Mainmeister's in Scotland, I hope he didn't think that I was being nasty, because I was talking about Scotland's own independence, and to be quite honest, I don't like to see my friends leave. But of course, if they have got independent, tendencies to want to live their own lives in their own country, so be it. You know what I mean? Less said about that, the better. And then we come to Milfy. Now, I knew this one was coming. And to be quite honest, it takes nearly 8 minutes to read everything that he's put. And it's, because it's a scenario type problem. But he did say read out the first couple of paragraphs. And I think I'll do that. And then he said to people, please read this whole section because you'll find it quite fun. And I did. I found it immense fun. So go to my old blog from last week, look up the section for Milfy swim buckle and read that whole scenario. It's great. It's about how to kill zombies, basically. But we'll read it out. My apologies again this week for, as the vicar said to the nun, this is going to be another long one. Oh, God. I don't know if I'm going to get shot down for half of this stuff, in the future. I've got no question for you this week. Instead, I've dreamt up a little game for you to play. Perhaps just read the first two paragraphs, as it is bloody long to be reading out in a blog. And then anyone wanting to play can read it themselves in their own time. Game for the next blog. You're stuck, trapped in an empty room, 50 by 50 foot square, with 20-foot high walls and ceiling. The walls, floor and ceiling are made of solid thick concrete and there is no escape. Also, you notice that written on the floor in blood are two sets of words. These read, "Keep the sequence" and "Know your alphabet." As you're wondering what the words mean and how you're going to get out, a voice suddenly sounds out of nowhere and explains your situation. This is what it says. Now, that's the 2 paragraphs, but I will read a little bit more because it's quite good. To escape my room, you must survive 4 zombie attacks. The zombies will magically materialize at the opposite side of the room to you now. If you manage to survive the brain-eating monstrolites, then I'll set you free. The 4 attacks will happen with 5 minutes after the other. And to help you survive, I will tell you the type of enemy you are facing, and you get the choice of 6 weapons to deal with them. Anyway, enough blathering on. My zombies are getting hungry. And it goes on and on and on with the different weapons, etc., etc. And then a nice little bit at the end where you have to answer the puzzle with 1 word. Now, I did get the word Milfy, just to let you know. I found it very, very funny. Just to let you know, it is one of the cat family. Okay, if that gives you the answer that you need. It made me laugh. Yes, another clue. So, thank you so much for that, Milfy. You've always been there for me. I do hope people will look at your lovely little story and come to their own conclusion on it. I found it fun. Would have loved that one. Okay, then we get to Lord Evil. Great blog as usual. Quick question for the next one. What is your favourite and least favourite types of cheese? Oh, gold. Now, it's funny, I should be more adventurous with cheese because I like crackers and I like pizza and I like cheese on toast and I like it in sandwiches and I like it in a salad. But I've never been that adventurous. I mean, I think we all in the UK have tried cheddar, and I do like extra mature cheddar, the beyond mature cheddar, quite a strong cheddar, and I think my mother likes that Cathedral City extra mature cheddar, and because that's what my mum wants, I buy it, and then of course I have it with some of my meals, and that with salad cream and some ham or whatever. Lovely. I've never really liked that round trees, that Bablis or Babel or whatever. I can't remember the name of it now. And I'm not into runny cheese. No, I don't like all that in a tube, smearing it on stuff. No. And I can't really say that I'm for or against Dairy Lee triangles. You know, that soft cheese. It can be, it's quite a strong cheese. You can get it mild, obviously. But cheddar is obviously the one that I'm going to go for. Quite closely followed by Red Leicester. I love Red Leicester. Oh, ever since I used to go around my nan's and we used to have a selection of cheeses, Red Leicester intrigued me because of its colour. And when I tasted it, I was going, oh, it's quite mild and tasty. It's not so strong. It's quite nice. And I just used to eat it by itself. It's one of those cheeses that I like to just take a little chunk off and then just eat naturally. Extra strong cheddar sometimes just doesn't work out without something with it. So runny cheddars and runny cheese and soft cheeses I'm not particularly a fan of. And I tried brie and I didn't like brie much. All those cheeses sometimes can put you off where they say, oh, this one it's the fungus around it, or that gives it its flavour and all that sort of stuff can put you off. And blue is just not a nice colour to go with cheese. So I have to say that's the only answer I can give to you about that, and I hope that answers your question. Next one is from Charlie Angel. Good vlog as always. Thanks. Did you play any of the Call of Duty series, and if so, your favourites and why? Cheers. Well, thank you very much for that question. I did play Call of Duty, but I've made it perfectly known that I was big into first-person shooters, because I was there at that sort of like lovely beginning with Wolfenstein and Doom 2 and Quake and that whole tier of first-person shooters going up and up and up with their complexity and their looks and so forth. And of course, that meant during my console eras, I was buying games for my Xbox 360, my PS3, my PS4, PS5 even. But when we got to those consoles and they started to become more multiplayer, I tended to find that there were people that basically just wanted to make your life a misery. They would find an area, because they played the game so much, where they could just sniper you from long distance, and you couldn't work out, because of where you spawned, where they were coming from, and it just took your enjoyment out of it. It was almost like I was just target practice. And from that point of view, instead of me getting more determined to blow the little shit up who kept trying to shoot me, I got just frustrated to the point where, well, stuff you then. If that's the mentality of these people in this server, I don't want to be part of it, and I let them get on with it. But saying that, even with the PC, I kept buying new graphic cards, and I would test out my graphic card with the latest 3D engine, didn't you? So Crysis was one. Do you remember? I remember people talking about, yes, but can your graphic card handle Crysis? It was just one of those benchmark tests. And I think they still, to some extent, do that now, even with Crysis 3. And being such an old game, I think it was just so badly optimized, so ahead of its time, when that game came out. But to answer your question, I had Call of Duty 1 and 2 on the Xbox 360 and had an immense enjoyment with it. And I remember playing Black Ops on the PS3. And the reason I remember that one is because later on there would be some downloadable content to it, and they introduced zombies, and I thought, this is different. So we've gone past sort of like some of the warfare and all that sort of stuff and turned it into a zombie type game. And this is many years back, before we're full of zombie games now, and I found that quite enjoyable. But when it comes to after that point, no. Sorry, I really haven't gone back to the Call of Duty games too much. And thank you so much for that one. I'm just going to read out a little bit about Down the Rabbit Hole. Great to see another blog. It's ironic you mentioned Star Trek, because when you answered the question of which film you have seen the most, mine is Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. I can't recall how many times I've seen it, but it must be dozens and dozens. Yeah, it's very difficult for me to go back and go, have I watched The Wrath of Khan more than the motion picture? But I have to turn around and say, when it comes to pure numbers, I think I've seen the motion picture more than The Wrath of Khan, even though I've seen The Wrath of Khan many times. And the reason for that is there have always been, it's showing on telly, an extended version. There's all the physical media that I've watched through the years. I've seen it on tape and Blu-ray. You add it all together, and I think the motion picture probably got pipped at the post over Wrath of Khan. So yeah, motion picture I think just about beats it in numbers, but it's darn close. You're going to look forward to trying to find ways of seeing Blake 7 because you only saw the first season. Please do. I think you'll get mass enjoyment in your later years now, Rabbit, with watching a show like that, because it is quite political, and I think it'll bring your mind back to how Britain was back then. I'm not saying it's so political it turns into Crown Court or something. I'm just saying that you can see the overtones of it in the writing, and it's still science fiction and lovely. So thank you very much for that. And I think that comes to the end of that, other than I think I went past Steve a bit quickly. I think he had a question for me, and I don't think I did it. Yes, I just answered this question, didn't I? Steve, I do apologise. Here is your question and my answer to it. Not a stupid question for you. What one sci-fi TV series and one sci-fi film scared you the most when you first saw them, and why? I'll throw in my own here. The TV series was Day of the Triffids. It terrified me when I was a kid. The film is Demon Seed, which gave me nightmares for quite some time. Demon Seed. That's to do with pregnancy, isn't it? Where they impregnate a lady, yeah, in that film. I remember it, yeah. Take care, mate. I'd like to know what your answers are. I don't think really I've had nightmares, but I've had films that make me jump, and I've had scary sort of chilly overtones happen to me watching certain films and TV series, and I dare say they happen more as in my younger years than they did later on. To give you an example, Event Horizon doesn't scare me, but it makes me jump. So Event Horizon with Sam Neill looking for the spaceship, the Event Horizon which disappeared in deep space, that made me jump. The things that were going on in that film. And going back earlier, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the remake with Donald Sutherland, I'll never forget the ending where, and spoilers here, he points towards his friend and acts like one of the pod creatures. All he does is he just holds his hand out like this and opens his mouth, and this horrible sound, goes. He does that face, and this horrible alien sound comes out, knowing therefore that he's been taken over by the aliens. Yes, those sort of things come to mind, but I never woke up going, "Oh, aliens are going to get me," or anything like that. And I suppose that's why I tend to like films like TV series like Night Gallery, Twilight Zone, the Quatermass dramatizations, and Hammer House of Mystery and Suspense is another perfect one. Like The House That Dripped Blood. I remember that. I never got scared. I can't say that I was scared by it, but they had an effect on me. Definitely. So sorry I missed that, Steve, and I'm glad I got to remember it before the end, because that would have made me look stupid, wouldn't it? And you know how I look when I get stupid. So we moved on, and I'm just going to have some product placement. And what have I watched on YouTube? Yes, so as I've said, I've tried to sort of like relax after last weekend. I needed to sit back and just calm down and come back refreshed this week. So the stuff I've watched is pretty much stuff that you've heard me talk about before. This Week in Retro was yesterday, and they mentioned that the Encarta Multimedia CD was 40 years this month, or this month just gone. Yeah, and it was interesting when they were talking about it, because although Encarta was something I had, because is what we considered junkware that came with a PC. It was just like mammoths of discs. I remember getting them when I first got my 386 and my early 486. I was more interested in the movie. There was a movie CD that basically was a big database, and I can't remember what it was called. But Microsoft brought out this movie database, and I was forever looking for the clips on it. What do they say about Star Wars? Is there any Star Wars clips on this? And then looking to see about the review, and then there would be the side window bits that told you about the production and all sorts of stuff. Of course, we have the internet now, so of course we don't get those lovely discs anymore. But I think I've still got my Encarta, and I think I've still got that movie. Well, I'll have to check that out. And then they talked about Deluxe Paint has been rewritten in Python. No, not Monty Python, but a language. And it brought back so many memories of Deluxe Paint, because Deluxe Paint obviously didn't come to me as a packaged product. I had an Amiga 1000. I was lucky to get public domain discs with my my Amiga, but I do remember buying Deluxe Paint and using it, and I don't think anybody can ever forget the Tutu Carbon face mask being used in Deluxe Paint, so that was great. Retro Recipes, a game, not much from this particular show, other than I'm intrigued because he's going back now and looking at clips that are well established on YouTube, and he's upscaling them to 4K. Now, he did a great one a couple of weeks ago of Back to the Future, and this week it was Bjork, and apparently a very famous clip where a telly blew up, and he upscaled it to 4K. He does an amazing job at doing that, but I sometimes wonder, where are we going with this? What's the reason for it? But very enjoyable, and it's worth a watch. I like Retro Recipes. I sometimes I think come down across that I don't like that, but why do I keep watching it each week? Then, because of all the Star Trek stuff started to appear in my watching channel for YouTube, and Cinema Sins came up. Cinema Sins is a channel that basically lists all the sins and things that are wrong in films. And there was one called Everything Wrong with the original Star Trek movie franchise. And I'll tell you what, the amount of sins when you get to Star Trek 6, and it went from Star Trek 1 to Star Trek 6, it ran into 800 or 900 sins. And it made me laugh because half the sins are explainable, and he just made a joke about it, but you have to turn your brain off and just basically laugh. That's all you're supposed to do with that. And so I had a nice relaxing time looking at that and just going, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, like this all the way through it. And then Cult of Mush reported that the Dolphin emulator is now coming to Steam, and this, I think, was introduced on a number of YouTube channels as a news article this week, because why is a emulator that is used to emulate Nintendo hardware coming to Steam as a product for you to download and use? Will it even happen? But according to it, it's an announcement and it's happening. So, wow, yeah. I brought that out just to see whether there's any deliberation on what your feelings are in regards to that, because I looked at it and went, that's weird. I do know that there are other emulators in there. I've got 3D Sen, which is a brilliant emulator through Steam, which turns NES games into 3D. But Dolphin's been around for a while, and why Steam are now going to list it as a downloadable app? in its library. Not sure. And then I sent a little snippet of a YouTube video from somebody called Vblog to my mate Denny. He was at work for 12-hour shifts for a couple of days. And it's called The Evolution of Star Trek Music on Violin. And there's this very talented lady on there that's got a very futuristic, lovely looking violin. You know, not the old style Sherlock Holmes violin. We're talking about those metal, weird shaped violins that are so modern these days. They look like guitar. You know, like a guitar is being shoved underneath your neck. And the music that came out of this violin was just gorgeous. You know, I mean, and they did all the tunes going through it, and did an amazing job. And that's what I watched on YouTube. I hope you found that enjoyable. Maybe there's something there that makes you want to go back and look those up. I've tried to give the name to each of those that were in there, like Vid Dance, Cult of Mush, all of that sort of stuff. So maybe you'll be able to find the things that I found. Just looking, and there's no stuttering so far, so that's brilliant. And then your YouTube stuff that I've watched that you guys have done, and this is where I get immense pleasure, because it's almost like you're writing it for me, and broadcasting stuff that I want to see. So thank you very much for keeping me entertained this week. So we've got LFC Gamer and Vlogs. Bit of respect to him at the moment. He's done a blog, even though he said he was going to take a break. Obviously, he only needed a small one, and that's great. Small, large, keeping us informed is brilliant. And he did, at the time that he was stopping doing his blog, he did a top 30 Commodore 64 games. And for a small channel like LFG, Gamer and Vlogs, he's got something like 150 subscribers. That particular video must have gone viral because it's got 1,800 views as of yesterday. He doesn't understand why it went up, but he's very happy about it. I think he got a number of subscribers from it, and I'm just going, salute, sir. We could all do with a little bit of a boost like that. But please, keep up the good work. I'm glad you're back. Looking forward to more of your views in your own blog, and keep them coming. Then we've got Down the Rabbit Hole. He played a D&D game, which is a Saturn game, on his little handheld that he's got. I think this handheld is called Retroid. Can't remember. But it's very interesting to see him play games. And this little handheld must be pretty incredible. I've seen him review it before, actually, but I can't quite remember what the full name of it is. But when I was watching this footage of Saturn game, I didn't know it was on a handheld. That's how crisp the image looked. It looked like it was a direct feed, so I really enjoyed that. And then he wanted to explain in another video that week that there is an update to this little handheld, this Retroid, and it's a flip version, but he explained that he's not going to get that flip version, even though it would be quite nice to have because of the size, because of the thumbsticks. Now, one thing that Rabbit has stated is that these thumbsticks are absolutely fantastic. They're like some of the best thumbsticks you can get on a handheld. They've just got the right stiffness, feel, travel, on them. The reason he doesn't want it on the flip is because they leave an impression sometimes on the glass, on the top half of the device. So I can totally get that. And we moved to 20th Century Gaming, who did several streams this week. I was only able to attend one, unfortunately. They were announced a little bit later, and I didn't see them, the announcements. And of course, I was also trying to relax a little bit this week, so it happened at a bad time. But I'm looking forward. I looked forward to the end of the week where I was going to watch them, and I watched a lot of them back on this weekend, and some absolutely brilliant ones there. You're such a phenomenal player, is what I need to say about that. And then you released a video about arcade Commodore 64 games, but you did your own little twist on it by adding background sounds as if you were in an arcade itself while you were playing the game. I thought that was actually immense fun. Bit hard on my ears if I was when I had my earpieces in, but as a ambient sound when I was listening to it through just normal surround sound, it was great. And then you showed off the Transformers game on the Commodore 64, which brought back some memories, to be quite honest. I always found that game to be bloody fiddly. Oh my god, how fiddly was that game. You turn from a robot into a car, and then you can fly as well. And yeah, I found that. If you're going to play that game shortly and try and complete it, good luck to you, sir. Yeah. And then there's Robert's Retro Gaming, and you know I've got a very big pass with Robert's Retro Gaming. He's done his normal standout selection of Atari stuff. On the Atari 8-bits, he played a game called Starbase 13, Aztec, Color Purple, amongst many, Color Puzzle, should I say, amongst others. And every single one of them was enjoyable. Color Puzzle intrigued me a little bit because I think he did mention that he thought it was written in BASIC. It's a type-in, but I remember those types of games when I was typing in games for my VIC-20 and Commodore 64. Brought back some nice memories. And then of course he did his episode 81 of his Minecraft series. So 81, mate, well done, absolutely spot on. You really do love that game, my god. A bit more product placement. And then we move to Steve's Gaming. Now Steve's continuing asking his friends to choose 5 favourite games. He's had a couple of people he's done this week, so episodes 3 and 4 are now out. One of them is Robert's Retro Gaming, which I've just talked about, and the other one is from Martin. I think it's got a screen name of Goodlier. Anyway, very entertaining to see people's choices. I'm wondering if they are actually their favourites, or whether they're actually trying to torture him, or whether they're just games that they want to see him play. I know when I made my deliberation, I tried to mix it up a bit, and if I was to choose my actual favourites, every game would have been one of the longer ones. You'd have never have been able to have fitted it in. So I only put one long game in for my particular selection. So very enjoyable watching those. Then we got Mainmeister. Now, as we know, he is stepping back a little bit, but that hasn't stopped him from bringing out stuff. He did a live waffle on Friday with his good friend Panther and a friend of mine, which was very enjoyable. We got caught up in regards to going and doing a martial art, a future Sid show that's coming up, all sorts of stuff. Definitely a waffle from Mainmeister is a must listen and watch. And then he did he hasn't done these for a long time, a minimalistic review of Resident Evil 4. These reviews are less than 20 seconds, and they get straight to the point. I'll never forget one. I can't remember what the game was, but it just had 2 words in it. So the credits come on. It took about 20 seconds for these credits. He was there in front of the camera, and no word of a lie, the only 2 words he said was zombie, zombie, and that was the end. And what he was trying to say there is, don't bother buying this game, because zombies what it basically is anyway. Back in the day, that was brilliant. And then we get to Ray C. Ray C is relatively new to me as a person to watch on YouTube, but he played did a sort of like a walkthrough of Finders Keepers, which is an old cheap Mastertronic game which I like to play, and my god, there's a lot of back and forth in that game. And then he did something which I like as well, which is how far can I get in Berserk with 1 credit? That's always intriguing, sort of thing that you used to challenge your friends to when you ever walked into an arcade with your mates. That was great. So those two definitely worth a watch. And then we come to good old Ponder, Colin, my mate. He did one of his videos that, like he did with the Fight Ring King a week or so back. This time with the latest high score game called Lizard Wizard. And very entertaining it was too. He got better and better. You can see that I think he's going to give some of the people that are in this competition a run for the money. So we've come to the end of what the stuff I've watched of your guys' stuff. So thank you so much for entertaining me this week. And then we get to watched on TV. So what have I watched? So I've watched Picard. Season 3, episode 7. So there are 10 episodes in this season. It's ramping up now. Now we've got a 50-50 episode of 50% action, 50% characterization. Possibly the wrong balance, actually. It could have been more 60 characterization, 40 action. But nevertheless, both were not jarring to make them feel they were two distinct things. It was a very, very good story, and it's leading up to a climax that I really, really want to see now. It's absolutely great. And then The Mandalorian. So I didn't get to see The Mandalorian last week, so I had 2 episodes to watch this week, 4 and 5. And it reminds me really sometimes that some shows are better watched as a box set, all the way through. And I'm not saying that's the case with Mandalorian, but I will say it's looking that way for this season, because I got much better enjoyment out of watching 4 and 5 together than I did watching episodes 2 by itself and then episodes 3 by itself, etc. So that was good. And then I watched a couple of films this week. One is called The Boston Strangler, which is going to come as no shock to anybody that I like sort of serial killer films, ones that are sort of like documentary but filmish, as in as a piece of fiction. And so the remake of The Boston Strangler with Keira Knightley was really quite good. That's on Disney Plus. And then I saw the film Everything Everywhere All at Once, which won quite a few Oscars, I believe, this year. And Jamie Lee Curtis is in it. And it's sort of like an interdimensional rupture unravels itself in time and space, starting off with the Earth. And it's really quite a fun film. Definitely deserving of praise is what I think the best thing that I can say about it. And then just before I went to bed last night, I listened to Radio 5 because the Joshua versus Franklin fight was on. And when I was listening to it, I basically sort of did a simile in my head of, I've heard this before, this match. And I think Anthony Joshua now has turned to me, and just to me, like a Frank Bruno character. He's immensely strong. He's immaculate when on how his physique looks, and you can tell that there is immense power in his punches, right? But the thing that was hard for Bruno is that everybody looked at him as a pantomime character, as a person that is too nice to be a boxer type thing. I don't feel that way about Joshua, but I do feel that Joshua, or Anthony Joshua as I really should say, doesn't seem to have those boxing skills. He seems to be a bit like Bruno, more strength than technique. Anyway, just so that you know, it went for 10 rounds and there was a happy ending at the end, and that's all I'm going to say, in case you want to go and not want to know the result. And then there's me. So this week I did my blog, which I did last week, which didn't go to plan. And I did another 8-bit years, and this time I chose the VIC-20. I said my 8-bit years would not all be Commodore 64, and I chose a VIC-20 game on purpose to shake it up a little bit, but also one that I think is under the radar of a number of people. So I don't think um, Mountain King is thought of much in 2023. And I had great fun with that, and I chose the VIC 20 version. I think it's more the middle of the road version, thinking about its graphics and its sound, but I definitely think I chose the right one for my blog. And that's it! And to be quite honest, just to let you know, nothing arrived in the post other than gifts from friends. So I got some nice magazines from my mate Jambon. I got a nice DVD from Denny in the film Freds, and so what made me think should I have a topic or something was no. I'm going to continue my rest, and I'm going to come back next week like a giant refreshed, and have lots more content, lots more things to say. Hopefully, anyway, lots more things to do, and I'm going to show you something that always used to cheer up. Whenever I was having a bad week or a bad day, used to cheer me up. Now, it's a clip from a film called Amazon Women on the Moon. Careful now, it's not that type of film. But Arsenio Hall is the character, and he's having a bad day. And well, I'm just going to let you watch it. So we'll go to media playback, which is where I show all my clips of things. And I'm going to turn off the mic now and let you watch this clip on, if you ever want to cheer yourself up when you're having a bad day, play this clip. I'm pretty sure your day will just go away and you'll be smiling at the end of it. Here we go.
Hello? No, you got the wrong number. Yeah, but ain't no Thelma here, man. I'm coming! What? Man, ain't no Thelma here!
And there we go. Always makes me laugh. If I'm having a bad day, I put that on. Right the way from the can exploding in his face, the food that had been in the fridge for obviously over a week, the telly blowing up, and the amount of times I've shouted at the phone, "I'm coming!" when how's the phone gonna know? I mean, there's just bits in it that just I can relate with. And I think it was Joe Dante that actually directed that. There was a number of directors that made these little snippets. It's very much a Kentucky Fried Movie film, with little clips all the way through. Definitely one from my past that I really liked. And just to end with a little message to my mate Jambon, we've both been looking for graphic cards, and we've been both deliberating, I think, over the same graphic card, which is going to be an Nvidia RTX 3060 Ti. I haven't changed my mind on the fact that that's definitely the pound to performance card to get, but I've learned a couple of things. They come in several formats as well. There are free fan versions where there are free cooling fans on them, some with two, but that's not the important thing. It's the wattage that is used. Now, Jambon asked me a question about what was the best sort of like power supply for this. I'm going to up what I said and say 750 and above now, because you can buy this graphic card 3060 Ti in several different versions. There's OC versions, which stands for overclocked and so forth, but they've got different power edges on them, and you really want the one that is 225 watts or above, and there is a 250 watt edition. Now, the reason for that is you're going to need more wattage to boost the clock. So with 250 watts taking up your power supply, I would say that 650 is going to be borderline now. With some of the other information that I gave you before in regards to the motherboard, the USB ports, the memory, the CPU and its fan. So possibly now think a little bit about whether you're going to go with a stock free 3060 Ti now, which will restrict your booster clock, or whether you're going to just push the power supply a little bit more, because it does it automatically, the booster clock, by the way. And you'll have a graphic card that will last you probably an extra 6 months past its sell-by date if you do that. And 750, it gives you that little bit extra ceiling room for you to put hubs and things later on. And that's the end of my blog. Thank you so much for bearing with me and for letting me just get a little message out to my mate, because haven't spoken to him for a while. And that's it, guys. Salute. Hope you've enjoyed this. Roll on next week. Thanks very much. Bye bye.